So this is just to pick up on where this is part 5 of chapter 7 for this thing. So to access the length of the array with this thing, so if you look at each one of these parts that in the length for this, this will tell you the number.length of this array that you're using. That's going to return back with this as well. So let me pause. Let me pull up the length.java for us to take a look. So this is the one that when we look at the length of the array with this thing, and this is very, very unique as when you look at the number of rows in this, how many rows do you have? You have 1, 2, 3. And how many columns do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you see how this is set up with this thing is that how this is being displayed is the return of the dot length for this. So if I look at the number of rows of 0, if I look at which is this is row 0, right? So is actually the number of columns in row 0 is 4, right? The number of columns in row 2 is 4. The number of columns in row 2 is 4. Okay, so it kind of breaks down because it has this syntax that you can actually use the dot length in this thing. All right. So moving on, let me talk to you about that was all that's dot length and how two-dimensional, summing up the two-dimensional rows, and you can actually sum up each one of these things when you actually use the rows, and you can sum up the rows and columns with the same. Passing the number 2, when you pass and return two-dimensional arrays, a reference with the same. There's no difference between passing a single or a two-dimensional arrays as an argument to a method. The method must accept two-dimensional arrays as a parameter with the same. So I want to point out that this is a really good depiction of what they actually call what's called ragged array, when rows of a two-dimensional array are different in length. This is known as a ragged array. So ragged arrays basically is when you have the number of rows with a different length with this. You can create a ragged array with creating two-dimensional arrays with a specific number of rows but no column with the same. So how is this possible when you actually create two numbers basically, and you can kind of like it's off by 1 with it? I don't know. So this is part of something in the future that we can look at. So here's some of its two-dimensional arrays. So think of this as kind of like a Rubik's Cube. It has 6 sides. So this is one side, this is another side, and this is another side. So you have basically 3 sides to this two-dimensional arrays with this thing. So a spreadsheet with the tabs at the bottom is another one with it as well. Command line argument. Java can receive an argument from an operating system's command line. The main method header looks like this. So public side void main, you're familiar with this. The main method receives a string array as the parameter. This is what this is saying with it. So the array is passing across the argument as the parameter comes in the operating system in the command line with the same as well. So like I said, this is something that you can actually use. How does this work? If you do arg 0 assign how does this work, and you can actually use command. It's pretty silly, but I don't know why Java they use this as well with it as well. Read through the rest of the PowerPoint slides with us. ArrayList is a really good point I want to hit on. I think this is how you I didn't bring up the array list. How do you create an array list size of this thing? Creating array list size. This is from size on slide number 64 with this thing. So what is array list with this thing? Array list is a list. Remember, I haven't talked to you, but there's arrays, there's array list, and there's also vector. All right, there are 3 categories of a lot of times that you're going to see when I talk to you about different type of length of this thing. So I think the PowerPoint slides don't do justice with creating lists with this thing, but the syntax that when you look at ArrayList, when you use ArrayList with it, it's another ways that you can actually store in information that automatically it changes the size of this thing. Remember, regular arrays, you cannot change size. ArrayList, you can change the size. So it's like you know, it's one of these things that one size fit all. ArrayList is perfect for that. So if you don't know what the size of the array, use ArrayList. Okay. Java has a library file that you have to use as the ArrayList with this thing. So that's why I want to start out. You know, just think of that as what's called an ArrayList. Talk about the ArrayList. How do you create it? How do you actually use the ArrayList? How do you access and create with the ArrayList? How do you actually go in and create an ArrayList, and how do you process it with it? So that's what the rest of the syntax would have you do with this. Pretty much the same. I mean, it's really good to see how ArrayList it's the same thing as what you do for the others with a regular array with this, but you just add in the word list after as well. All right. I'm going to stop right here. So this will conclude everything in chapter 7 with that as well. All right.